This video is sponsored by Squarespace, making the daunting task of building a website really easy. It's light, it's fast, but is it supple? Today I'm going to review the hotly anticipated IBIS Hakka MX. Find out what I like and dislike about it in this video. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're into the non-competitive side of cycling, riding, party pace, you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. I've been trying to get an IBIS Hakka to review on the channel for the last couple years, and it has finally happened. Devin from Archer Components actually sent out his personal bike kitted out with their brand new drop bar electronic shifter, which I will get into in a separate video. So if you're as excited as I am that I've finally had the chance to review an IBIS, give Devin a big thanks and visit their website at Archer Components. The IBIS Hakka MX is definitely a cross-inspired gravel bike. It's got a carbon frame, carbon fork. This particular build is built around 700C wheels. It's got some IBIS branded wheels and hubs, and the tires are some Schwalbe G1 all-round LTEs in 40 millimeters. With my calipers, they measured out to about 38.5 millimeters. So actually probably one of the most narrow tires I've ridden in a while. For the brakes and controls, they're built around the TRP Hilux disc brake and levers. Typically when you buy the lever, there is no shifting mechanism, but with the Archer Components DBR, you actually remove one of the plates and install their electronic shifting, and it's pretty neat. You turn basically a dumb shifter into a hydraulic brake shifter with electronic shifting. I think it's an awesome mod and great ingenuity in using what's already out there. Moving rearward to the rest of the bike, it's got a carbon frame, 3 water bottle mounts. One of them is being taken up to house the whole D1X shifting system. The crank is a 1x Praxis with 40 teeth, and the rear derailleur is a SRAM rival rear derailleur. Technically a cable actuated shifter, but in this case with the D1X and DBR system from Archer Components, it is shifting electronically. Rear cassette is 11 to 42 in 11 speeds, IBIS seat posts, and a WTB Silverado saddle. In terms of braze-ons and utility for the bike, there's actually not a whole lot. Looking at the front fork, there are no eyelets for a 3-pack mount, no rack mount, and not even fender mount. I know that's been kind of a complaint for many people that have this bike. Some models of this bike don't have fender mounts, although some do. This one clearly does not. There's not even a hole at the crown of the fork to attach anything. On the rear, there are these kind of small screw-on fender mounts. Probably wouldn't trust a rack on it. The bike overall is definitely a go-fast race bike and very short on utility. On our scales, the bike weighs, even with these kind of bigger mountain bike platform pedals on it, a scant 19.5 pounds. So pretty dang light, even though it is stripped of a lot of utility. Clearly, this gravel bike is meant more for the light and fast kind of racing end of the bike spectrum. That's enough of the boring stuff. Let's talk about the more interesting things like bike geometry and how the bike actually rides. But before we do that, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. Squarespace is your one-stop shop where you can buy a domain and build a website. They make it really easy, even for a literature major like me. I was able to create a website in basically a weekend around one of my other interests, watercolors. I put together peddlingpainter.com just in a couple days, just so I can show off my cycling related art. I was able to create a gallery, talk about some of the artwork, sell them, as well as create a contact form. All this stuff without having to write a single line of code. So I highly recommend it. It is as easy as they say. So if you want to make a website and you want to do it really quickly and easily, definitely check out Squarespace. And when you're ready to launch, check out the URL and the promo code below to save you 10% off of your first domain or your first Squarespace website. Looking at the geometry numbers here, there's nothing really crazy going on. Rear chainstay length is 430. Not super tucked, not super long, kind of just middle of the road. On the front end, it's got a 71.5 head tube angle, so within that realm of road and cross inspired gravel bikes. Doesn't have an overly long front center, and it's built around more traditional stem lengths like 90 and 100 and so on. Calculating the trail on this bike, it ends up being in the upper 60s. So kind of in that upper range of endurance road bike. So what that means is that the handling is on the neutral responsive side of things. Pretty predictable. It doesn't exhibit any drunken goatiness or wheel flop when you're going up a slow climb. Generally light and responsive is the theme of this bike. Going on paved roads, this bike essentially handled like an endurance road bike. Going over gravel, it did great as long as things were hard pack and not super deep. The 40mm tires do provide some cushion and some grip. If you're riding consistently through some deep kind of pea gravel or some sandy stuff, you'd probably want a little bit more tire. On climbs, this is where the bike really excelled, partially because of its lightweight, but I feel like the frame is really stiff. Each pedal stroke really seemed to give back as much as you put into it. It's a nice, spicy, jumpy climber, especially out of the saddle. Going downhill, that's where things for me become a little bit of a mixed bag. A lot of the stuff we ride here does get a little chunky, isn't just smooth, hard pack. This is where I felt like I was getting really beat up by the bike. The general stiffness of everything felt great when you're putting that hard effort and wanted to accelerate. The downside of that, however, is that when you're going down chunky stuff, you just get beat up. I found myself stopping pretty often and letting more air out of the tires to get back some of that suppleness. I think the harshness of the ride can be partially attributed to the stiffness of the frame, but also the relative narrowness of the tires than what I'm used to. Light and fast and climbs well, but for me, not the most supple ride quality. Granted, the frame is supposed to clear wider 650B wheels and tires, and if this were my personal bike, that is how I would run it. It would take off the edge from the generally harsh ride, give you more float, but also prevent the toe overlap. That's right, this is a size 53, and with the 700 by 40mm tires, I was definitely getting toe overlap with this frame. So who is this bike for? It doesn't have a ton of mounts. Again, some versions don't have a fender mount, so not really for the utilitarian cyclist. I think this is a roadie's version of a gravel bike. Light, responsive, climbs really well, although being a little bit on the stiff side for me. If you're used to road bikes and don't want to stray too much into the mountain bike inspired gravel bike territory, then this is definitely a bike for you. Or if you want a bike that you could run essentially as a road bike and as a gravel bike for those events, then this is another awesome option. I probably wouldn't recommend this bike for bike packing unless you were going super light and were riding on mostly paved and well-groomed unpaved roads. I think the general harshness and lack of utility of the frame makes it less ideal for that kind of riding. Overall, a great choice if you're looking for a gravel bike that is light, fast, responsive, can double as a endurance road bike. I probably wouldn't add it to my personal stable just because I like bikes that have more utility built into them, but not everyone is like that. But that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this a bike that you would add to your stable? And if you like this review about the Ibis Haka, definitely check out Archer Components. Thank you, Devin, for sending your personal bike, letting me get it dirty, and look forward to a more in-depth review on their brand new DBR drop bar D1X shifting system. If you like to hack mullet builds, but want it in an electronic shifting package, then it's definitely for you. Stay tuned for that one, and as always, keep the supple side down.